The Chalukya dynasty was an Indian royal dynasty that ruled large parts of southern and central India between the 6th and the 12th centuries. During this period, they ruled as three related yet individual dynasties. The earliest dynasty, known as the Badami Chalukyas, ruled from Vatapi from the middle of the 6th century. The Badami Chalukyas began to assert their independence at the decline of the Kadamba kingdom of Banavasi and rapidly rose to prominence during the reign of Pulakeshin II. After the death of Pulakeshin II, the Eastern Chalukyas became an independent kingdom in the Eastern Deccan. They ruled from Veni until about the 11th century. In the Western Deccan, the rise of the Rashtrakutas in the middle of the 8th century eclipsed the Chalukyas of Badami before being revived by their descendants, the Western Chalukyas, in the late 10th century. These Western Chalukyas ruled from Kalyani until the end of the 12th century. The rule of the Chalukyas marks an important milestone in the history of South India and a golden age in the history of Karnataka. The political atmosphere in South India shifted from smaller kingdoms to large empires with the ascendancy of Badami Chalukyas. A southern India-based kingdom took control and consolidated the entire region between the Kaveri and the Narmada rivers. The rise of this empire saw the birth of efficient administration, overseas trade and commerce, and the development of new style of architecture called Chalukyan architecture. Kannada literature, which had enjoyed royal support in the 9th century Rashtrakuta court, found eager patronage from the Western Chalukyas in the Jain and Veerashaiva traditions. The 11th century saw the birth of Telugu literature under the patronage of the Eastern Chalukyas. Origins. Natives of Karnataka. While opinions vary regarding the early origins of the Chalukyas, the consensus among noted historians such as John K. D. C. Sarkar, Hans Raj, S. Sen, Kamath and Mlpkr as the founders of the empire at Badami were native to the modern Karnataka region. A theory that they were descendants of a 2nd century chieftain called Kandachaliki Remanaka, a feudatory of the Andhra Ikshvaku, was put forward. This, according to Kamath, has failed to explain the difference in lineage. The Kandachaliki feudatory call themselves Vashathiputras of the Hiranyaka Gotra. The Chalukyas, however, address themselves as Harithiputras of Manavyasa Gotra in their inscriptions, which is the same lineage as their early overlords, the Kadambas of Banavasi. This makes them descendants of the Kadambas. The Chalukyas took control of the territory formerly ruled by the Kadambas. A later record of Eastern Chalukyas mentions the northern origin theory and claims one ruler of Ayodhya came south, defeated the Pallavas and married a Pallava princess. She had a child called Vijayaditya who is claimed to be the Pulakeshin II's father. However, according to the historians K. V. Ramesh, Chopra and Sastry, there are Badami Chalukya inscriptions that confirm Jayasimha was Pulakeshin II's grandfather and Ranaranga, his father. Kamath and Maurice claim it was a popular practice in the 11th century to link South Indian royal family lineage to a northern kingdom. The Badami Chalukya records themselves are silent with regards to the Ayodhya origin. While the northern origin theory has been dismissed by many historians, the epigraphist K. V. Ramesh has suggested that an earlier southern migration is a distinct possibility which needs examination. According to him, the complete absence of any inscriptional reference of their family connections to Ayodhya, and their subsequent Kannadiga identity may have been due to their earlier migration into present-day Karnataka region where they achieved success as chieftains and kings. Hence, the place of origin of their ancestors may have been of no significance to the kings of the empire who may have considered themselves natives of the Kannada-speaking region. The writing of 12th century Kashmiri poet Bilhana suggests the Chalukya family belonged to the Shudra caste while other sources claim they were Kshatriyas. The historians Jan Houben and Kamath, and the epigraphist D.C. Surkar note the Badami Chalukya inscriptions are in Kannada and Sanskrit. According to the historian N.L. Rao, their inscriptions call them Karnatas, and the names use indigenous Kannada titles such as Prigalam and Noduttagalvom. The names of some Chalukya princes end with the pure Kannada term Arasar. The Rashtrakuta inscriptions call the Chalukyas of Badami Karnatabala. It has been proposed by the historian S.C. Nondinat that the word Chalukya originated from Salkya Chalky, which is a Kannada word for an agricultural implement. Historical sources. Inscriptions in Sanskrit and Kannada are the main source of information about the Badami Chalukya history. Among them, the Badami cave inscriptions of Mangalesha, Kappa Arabata record of c. 700, Pedavada Guru inscription of Pulakeshin II, the Kanchi Kailasanatha temple inscription and Patadakal Virupaksha temple inscription of Vikramaditya II provide more evidence of the Chalukya language. The Badami cliff inscription of Pulakeshin I, the Mahakuta pillar inscription of Mangalesha and the eye-hole inscription of Pulakeshin II are examples of important Sanskrit inscriptions written in Old Kannada script. The reign of the Chalukyas saw the arrival of Kannada as the predominant language of inscriptions along with Sanskrit, in areas of the Indian peninsula outside what is known as Tamilaham. Several coins of the Badami Chalukyas with Kannada legends have been found. All this indicates that Kannada language flourished during this period. Travelogues of contemporary foreign travelers have provided useful information about the Chalukyan Empire. The Chinese traveler Xuanzang had visited the court of Pulakeshin II. At the time of this visit, as mentioned in the eye-hole record, Pulakeshin II had divided his empire into three Maharashtra Khasa great provinces comprising 99,000 villages each. This empire possibly covered present-day Karnataka, Maharashtra and coastal Konkan. Xuanzang, impressed with the governance of the empire, observed that the benefits of king's efficient administration was felt far and wide. Later, Persian Emperor Khosrau II exchanged ambassadors with Pulakeshin II. Legends court poets of the Western Chalukya dynasty of Kalyani narrate, once when Brahma, the creator, was engaged in the performance of the Sandhya rituals, Indra approached and beseeched him to create a hero who could put to an end the increasing evil on earth. On being thus requested, Brahma looked steadily into the Chalukya Jala and outsprang thence a great warrior, the progenitor of the Chalukyas. The Chalukyas claimed to have been nursed by the Sapta Matrikash and were worshippers of many gods including Shiva, Vishnu, Chamundi, Surya, Kubera, Parvati, Vinayaka and Kartikeya. Some scholars connect the Chalukyas with the Solankish of Gujarat. According to a myth mentioned in later manuscripts of Prithviraj Raso, Solankish were born out of fire pit at Mount Abu. However, it has been reported that the story of Agnikula is not mentioned at all in the original version of the Prithviraj Raso preserved in the fort library at Bikaner. According to the Nilagunda inscription of King Vikramaditya VI, the Chalukyas originally hailed from Ayodhya where 59 kings ruled, and later, 16 more of this family ruled from South India where they had migrated. This is repeated by his court poet Bulhana, who claims that the first member of the family, Chalukya, was so named as he was born in the hollow of the hands of god Brahma. According to a theory put forward by Lewis, the Chalukya were descendants of the Seleucia tribe of Iraq and that their conflict with the Pallava of Kanchi was but a continuation of the conflict between ancient Seleucia and Parthians, the proposed ancestors of Pallavas. However, this theory has been rejected by Kamath as it seeks to build lineages based simply on similar-sounding clan names. Period in Chalukya history. The Chalukyas ruled over the Deccan Plateau in India for over 600 years. During this period, they ruled as three closely related, but individual dynasties. These are the Chalukyas of Badami, who ruled between the 6th and the 8th century, and the two sibling dynasties, the Chalukyas of Kalyani, and the Chalukyas of Vengi. Chalukyas of Badami. In the 6th century, with the decline of the Gupta dynasty and their immediate successors in northern India, major changes began to happen in the area south of the Vindhyas, the Deccan and Tamilaham. The age of small kingdoms had given way to large empires in this region. The Chalukya dynasty was established by Pulakeshin I in 543. Pulakeshin I took Vatapi under his control and made it his capital. Pulakeshin I and his descendants are referred to as Chalukyas of Badami. They ruled over an empire that comprised the entire state of Karnataka and most of Andhra Pradesh in the Deccan. Pulakeshin II, whose pre-coronation name was Zeraya, commanded control over the entire Deccan and is perhaps the most well-known emperor of the Badami dynasty. He is considered one of the notable kings in Indian history. His queens were princes from the Mlpkr dynasty of South Kanara and the Western Ganga dynasty of Talakad, clans with whom the Chalukyas maintained close family and marital relationships. Pulakeshin II extended the Chalukya Empire up to the northern extents of the Pallava kingdom and halted the southward march of Harsha by defeating him on the banks of the river Narmada. He then defeated the Vishnu Kundans in the southeastern Deccan. Pallava Narasimhavarman, however, reversed this victory in 642 by attacking and occupying Badami temporarily. It is presumed Pulakeshin II, the great hero, died fighting. The Badami Chalukya dynasty went into a brief decline following the death of Pulakeshin II due to internal feuds when Badami was occupied by the Pallavas for a period of 13 years. It recovered during the reign of Vikramaditya I, who succeeded in pushing the Pallavas out of Badami and restoring order to the empire. Vikramaditya I took the title Rajamala. The 37-year rule of Vijayaditya was a prosperous one and is known for prolific temple-building activity. The empire was at its peak again during the rule of the illustrious Vikramaditya II, who is known not only for his repeated invasions of the territory of Tondai Mandalam and his subsequent victories over Pallava Nandivarman II, but also for his benevolence towards the people and the monuments of Kanchipuram, the Pallava capital. He thus avenged the earlier humiliation of the Chalukyas by the Pallavas and engraved a Kannada inscription on the victory pillar at the Kailasanatha temple. During his reign, Arab intruders of the Umayyad Caliphate invaded southern Gujarat, which was under Chalukya rule, but the Arabs were defeated and driven out by Pulakeshin, a Chalukya governor of Navsari. He later overran the other traditional kingdoms of Tamil country, the Pandyas, the Koles and the Cherit, in addition to subduing a Kalabra ruler. The last Chalukya king, Kirtivarman II, was overthrown by the Rashtrakuta king Dantidurga in 753. At their peak, the Chalukyas ruled a vast empire stretching from the Kaveri in the south to the Narmada in the north. Chalukyas of Kalyani. The Chalukyas revived their fortunes in 973 after over 200 years of dormancy, when much of the Deccan was under the rule of the Rashtrakutas. The genealogy of the kings of this empire is still debated. One theory, based on contemporary literary and inscriptional evidence plus the finding that the Western Chalukyas employed titles and names commonly used by the early Chalukyas, suggests that the Western Chalukya kings belong to the same family line as the illustrious Badami Chalukya dynasty of the 6th century, while other Western Chalukya inscriptional evidence evidence indicates they were a distinct line unrelated to the early Chalukyas. Talapa II, a Rashtrakuta feudatory ruling from Tardavadi 1000 overthrew Karka II, re-established the Chalukya rule in the Western Deccan and recovered most of the Chalukya Empire. The Western Chalukyas ruled for over 200 years and were in constant conflict with the Koles, and with their cousins, the Eastern Chalukyas of Vengi. Vikramaditya VI is widely considered the most notable ruler of the dynasty. Starting from the very beginning of his reign, which lasted 50 years, he abolished the original Saka era and established the Vikrama era. Most subsequent Chalukya inscriptions are dated in this new era. Vikramaditya VI was an ambitious and skilled military leader. Under his leadership, the Western Chalukyas were able to end the Chola influence over Vengi and become the dominant power in the Deccan. The Western Chalukya period was an important age in the development of Kannada literature and Sanskrit literature. They went into their final dissolution towards the end of the 12th century with the rise of the Hoysala Empire, the Pandyas, the Kakatiya and the Seanai Yadavis of Devagiri. Chalukyas of Vengi Pulakeshin II conquered the eastern Deccan, corresponding to the coastal districts of modern Andhra Pradesh in 616, defeating the remnants of the Vishnu-Kundina kingdom. He appointed his brother Kubja Vishnu-Vardhana as viceroy in 621. Thus the Eastern Chalukyas were originally of Kannada stock. After the death of Pulakeshin II, the Vengi viceroyalty developed into an independent kingdom and included the region between Nellore and Visakhapatnam. After the decline of the Badami Chalukya Empire in the mid-8th century, territorial disputes flared up between the Rashtrakutas, the new rulers of the Western Deccan, and the Eastern Chalukyas. For much of the next 2 centuries, the Eastern Chalukyas had to accept subordination towards the Rashtrakutas. Apart from a rare military success such as the one by Vijayaditya II, it was only during the rule of Bhima I that these Chalukyas were able to celebrate a measure of independence. After the death of Bhima I, the Andhra region once again saw succession disputes and interference in Vengi affairs by the Rashtrakutas. The fortunes of the Eastern Chalukyas took a turn around 1000. Dhananava, their king, was killed in battle in 973 by the Telugu Choda king Bhima, who then imposed his rule over the region for 27 years. During this time, Dhananava's 2 sons took refuge in the Chola kingdom. Choda Bhima's invasion of Tondaimandalam, a Chola territory, and his subsequent death on the battlefield opened up a new era in Chola-Chalukya relations. Saktavarman I, the elder son of Dhananava, was crowned as the ruler of Vengi in 1000, though under the control of King Rajaraj of Chola I. This new relationship between the Koles and the coastal Andhra kingdom was unacceptable to the Western Chalukyas, who had by then replaced the Rashtrakutas as the main power in the Western Deccan. The Western Chalukyas sought to brook the growing Chola influence in the Vengi region, but were unsuccessful. Initially, the Eastern Chalukyas had encouraged Kannada language and literature, though, after a period of time, local factors took over and they gave importance to Telugu language. Telugu literature owes its growth to the Eastern Chalukyas. Architecture. The Badami Chalukya era was an important period in the development of South Indian architecture. Their style of architecture is called Chalukyan architecture, or Karnata Dravida architecture. Nearly 100 monuments built by them, rock-cut and structural, are found in the Mlpkr river basin in modern Bagalkote district of northern Karnataka. The building material they used was a reddish-golden sandstone found locally, though they ruled a vast empire. The Chalukyan workshops concentrated most of their temple-building activity in a relatively small area within the Chalukyan heartland, Aihole, Badami, Patadakal and Mahakuta in modern Karnataka state. Their temple-building activity can be categorized into three phases. The early phase began in the last quarter of the 6th century and resulted in many cave temples, prominent among which are 3 elementary cave temples at Aihole, followed by 4 developed cave temples at Badami. These cave temples at Badami are similar, in that each has a plain exterior but an exceptionally well-finished interior consisting of a pillared veranda, a columned hall and a cellar which contains the deity of worship. In Badami, 3 caves temples are Vedic and 1 in Jain. The Vedic temples contain large well-sculpted images of Harihara, Mahishasuramardhini, Varaha, Nrsimha, Trivikrama, Vishnu seated on Anantha and Nataraja. The second phase of temple building was at Aihole and Badami. Though the exact dating of these temples has been debated, there is consensus that the beginnings of these constructions are from c. 600. These are the Lad Khan temple with its interesting perforated stone windows and sculptures of river goddesses, the Meguti Jain temple which shows progress in structural design, the Durga temple with its northern Indian-style tower and experiments to adapt a Buddhist Chaitya design to a Brahmanical one, the Huchi Mali Gudi temple with a new inclusion, a vestibule, connecting the sanctum to the hall. Other Dravida-style temples from this period are the Naganatha temple at Nagrul, the Banantagudi temple, the Mahakutsvara temple and the Mallikarjuna temple at Mahakuta, and the lower Shivalaya temple, the Malajati Shivalaya temple and the Jambulanjasvara temple at Badami. The structural temples at Patadakal, built in the 8th century and now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, marks the culmination and mature phase of Badami Chalukyan architecture. The Bhutanatha group of temples at Badami are also from this period. There are 10 temples at Patadakal, 6 in southern Dravida style and 4 in the northern Nagara style. Well known among these are the Sangamesvara temple, the Virupaksha temple and the Mallikarjuna temple in the southern style. The Papanatha temple and Galaganatha temple are early attempts in the Nagara Dravida fusion style. Inscriptional evidence suggests that the Virupaksha and the Mallikarjuna temples were commissioned by the 2 queens of King Vikramaditya II after his military success over the Pallavas of Kanchipuram. Some well-known names of Chalukyan architects are Ravadiovaja, Narasoba and Anivaritagunda. The reign of Western Chalukyas was an important period in the development of Deccan architecture. Their architecture served as a conceptual link between the Badami Chalukya architecture of the 8th century and the Hoysala architecture popularized in the 13th century. The center of their cultural and temple-building activity lay in the Tungabhadra region of modern Karnataka state, encompassing the present-day Dharwad district. It included areas of present-day Havara and Gadag districts. Here, large medieval workshops built numerous monuments. These monuments, regional variants of pre-existing Dravida temples, defined the Karnataka Dravida tradition. The most notable of the many buildings dating from this period are the Mahadeva temple at Ataji in the Koppal district, the Kasavisvesvara temple at Lakundi in the Gadag district, the Mallikarjuna temple at Kuruvati, and the Kallavara temple at Begalai, both in the Davanga district. Other notable constructions are the Dodda Basappa temple at Dambal, the Siddhesvara temple at Havara, and the Amtsvara temple at Anigiri. The Eastern Chalukyas built some fine temples at Alampa, in modern eastern Andhra Pradesh.